Hello everybody and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
My name's James.
Checking how many goals Burnley have scored is James on his phone. 22 goals this season.
I was looking at Wolves, only scored 24.
Wolves have only scored 24.
They've only conceded 21, but 24. That's
Game week
amazing.
27. Double game week 27. One game left to go, which is Burnley-Leicester tomorrow. This is another week where just hanging on. Like last week, I only went in with 5 doublers, but triple captain Salah kept me in the hunt. This week, didn't play a free hit, so just wanting to stay in the hunt. I've had 4 grey arrows in a row. My rank's still...
Grey arrows are impossible, Suj.
You know
Nearly.
what I mean. Give or take.
You have to have a very good rank to get a grey arrow.
Moving nowhere. But also surviving and not using any chips. So, I'm on 46 minus 4, James, which Cancelo, Sonny, and David de Gea, even though he didn't score as many as Ben Foster, and Ben Johnson. That's it. That's all I got this week. But Weghorst captain tomorrow might change things.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned double game week, felt more like blank game week. With no games for obviously Chelsea, Liverpool. That was a great final yesterday. Second half particularly. One of the best 0-0s I've seen in a long time. And obviously, who else blanked this week?
Arsenal.
Gunners, that lot. They didn't play either. Although it felt that because they played Thursday, didn't feel that long ago. I'm on 43 minus 4. I moved out my 2 Watford forwards for Breuer and captains Wout Weghorst. So game week not over for me. I have Weghorst captain. I was blown away by his ownership. Could not believe how high Weghorst was in terms of effective ownership. It felt like everybody who got him captained him. Certainly felt like 150% effective ownership. Couldn't believe it. I know Ragabody from Live FPL tweeted was like, "What have we done?" And I was like, a quote tweeted it, and we've decided he's not Emmanuel Dennis. Is basically what everybody has decided here. So look, the game week is far from done because there's obviously high ownership for the Burnley assets tomorrow night. You've got just Weghorst, so have I. So it feels like at the moment, as a non-free hitter, was kind of very expected to have a red arrow this game week, and I've dropped down about 15,000 places. But I would have taken that prior to the game week, knowing how many free hits there were out there. I was almost certain that it would be a red arrow. It was a case for me of limiting the damage and saying, I don't think free hitters get sort of 20, 25 points more than me. At the moment, I'm about 10 points behind. So a Burnley clean sheet tomorrow probably is going to mean I am quite far behind. If Leicester score, it looks to me like I've done the right thing and not used it.
Yeah, agreed. I'm in exactly the same boat. Couldn't put it better myself. We obviously have had news that Chelsea Norwich is possibly on in game week 28 if Chelsea beat Luton in the FA
or
Cup.
If Norwich beat Liverpool.
And if Norwich beat Liverpool, it will be on the Thursday in game week 28, which means we're kind of now... my situation into 28 was that I've got 4 doublers, 2 Wolves, Foster and Dennis, Max Kilman and Breuer, but that I didn't necessarily want any other doublers from any of the other teams to stink up my team for a little while anyway. So I was going to leave it at 4 doublers, maybe one more. But now, Rudiger doubling, who's stuck with me through all that World Club Cup shit and didn't play, means I'll get up to 5. And I think then it does make it worth it for me to add a 6th and maybe get a Chelsea midfielder in, because then they're still going to have that rearranged game with Arsenal to come at some point. And Trossard to Mount, for example, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And I'll end up going from 4 to 6 doublers, which I'm happy with.
Yeah, that's okay. The common question we always get is, how many doublers do you need? The answer is, it doesn't matter. What's important is understanding what your single game week players have. Are you happy to play Trent and Mo Salah this week? Single game week at home to West Ham? Of course you are. Are you happy to play Cancelo against Manchester United? Yes, of course. We now know it's a single for Arsenal. Are you happy to play these guys at Watford? Are you happy to play Kane and Son at home to Everton?
Of
There
course.
are, once again, it's a nice double game week, but there are once again good assets this week with single game week fixtures. Someone like Bowen this week, you probably think, I'm not sure I do want him away to Liverpool after a couple of successive blanks. My plan is to bench him rather than sell him at the moment. I don't own any Chelsea at the moment, Suj, but as you know, I always thought this was going to be what would happen. So Rudiger's a definite for me. And to be honest, as it stands, he's likely to be who I captain this game week. And like you, also I think the one that probably works for me is Mason Mount to throw in as a second as well. And then that will leave me probably benching Bowen and Kieran Tierney from what my bus team is at the moment. I think that's probably what I'm going to do. That would then leave me with 7 doublers plus Trent, Salah, Cancelo, Kane.
Any thoughts on Havertz? He's burnt us earlier this season. But if Lukaku's not getting minutes and Havertz is going to play right up top, any thoughts to go there again?
But will he?
No.
Will he?
I don't think he will. That's why I'm not going to do it.
And there's Norwich in that second game again. It's psychological after so many of us captained him in, what was it, game week 9 or so, wasn't it?
7 goals.
I've captained the Chelsea striker.
Every single player, including a sub, picked up an attacking return, except Kai Havertz.
And Mason Mount was cheaper and got a hat-trick. I think Mount is the one. It's nothing to do with the fact he scored a hat-trick against them early in the season. I just think there's no guarantee that he'll play twice, particularly with those fixtures. But I think, it's that, isn't it? It's the reliability of physically knowing in my mind that he is definitely part of Thomas Tuchel's first choice Chelsea 11, irrespective of whether they're going to play a back 4 or a back 3. It was back to a back 3 in the cup final yesterday. You'd like to punt on, I think, on someone like Ziyech. I think if he was fit, you'd be like, he's beginning to show that the returns are there, but you could easily punt him from the start either game, right?
Yeah.
Obviously wasn't involved yesterday. Pulisic, for whatever reason, partly because of injuries, hasn't overly kicked on this season. So I think for me, it will be Rudiger, and it'll either be Mount, or it will be another defensive one, or it will be just Rudiger, and you haven't quite decided as yet. Rudiger's a definite for me. Who do you think will be most captain this week?
I think it's going to be very, very split. So, I mean, it's going to be very, very split. A lot of people will still just bust it on Salah. I think that home fixture against West Ham is decent enough for Mo Salah. I think Chelsea players will get decent ownership, but again, it will be the defensive ones over the attacking ones. And then there'll be a lot of people that will go with a double game week player just because it's a double game week.
Dead boring to captain Antonio Rudiger, isn't it?
No.
Yeah, I think it is, yeah.
You captain the player that you think is going to get the most points.
Yeah, I'll be captain Rudiger.
There you go.
At the end of the day, Chelsea, pound for pound, are as good as any others defensively. He basically always plays. That's how it feels. He might well get a break at Luton, obviously, on Wednesday night, possibly, but he's
probably,
the one
I would say.
You'd feel absolutely certain with that he played the league games, wouldn't you? Tuchel just never plays without him, basically. I mean, I said months ago he'll play 9 out of 10 games. I probably underestimated that. He basically nearly always plays, doesn't he? So I think Rudiger we know Chelsea's defenders are a big threat in terms of attacking stuff. He obviously drives on.
He likes a shot as well, doesn't
he? Yeah. Particularly when they play a back 3, he obviously likes to drive out with the ball. Not so much yesterday, but that's because of the opponent, obviously, in Liverpool. So he'll drive out and get high as a left-sided centre-back if they play that system. Basically, you've got away games against the 2 lowest scoring teams in the league, in Norwich and Burnley, if, obviously, either Chelsea or Norwich win this. And I wouldn't even discount Norwich knocking Liverpool out, honestly. I just think Liverpool will mass rotate for that cup game, even more so with extra time yesterday. It does mean Chelsea are obviously more likely to as well. It's difficult at the moment to foresee Luton beating Chelsea, isn't it?
Yeah.
We would laugh if it did happen. Who am I captaining if it's not in game week 28?
Breuer.
Probably, yeah. But I think the real popular one would
I want to call
still
him Brodger the points dodger because he's just so annoying.
He's not though, mate. He's not. He's consistent as Armando Breuer, particularly for his price.
2-2-2 is his last 3 games since I've owned him. So
there you go. He's due, isn't he?
Consistent.
Consistently average.
Yeah.
I think Raul Jimenez, not starting yesterday is probably I'd say a blessing for people. I think it's going to be enough to put people off. We was obviously out with some of our patrons and correspondents on the booze on Saturday. With 3 Wolves fans with us, obviously our correspondent Bradley Parker and also Gary and Phil are Wolves fans. I recorded a little video of him, and this is obviously prior to knowing he was going to get left out yesterday. And my argument was Raul Jimenez is going to be so popular this week. Double of Palace and Watford at home. I mean, on paper, it's a great double, isn't it? And they were adamant. They were like, he's not in form. Bradley had said that he thought he needed dropping. That's exactly what happened yesterday as well. So I think that will really calm the sort of Jimenez gamble. People sitting there, maybe Dennis King, I think just still hold on, don't they, possibly?
One more week. Let's rattle down through the games as we do each and every week. We'll try and squeeze in some of your questions on the old Twitter. And of course, the most important thing about this game week is that we're really not looking forward to game week 28 and kind of brackets game week 30 until all the FA Cup nonsense is out of the way. Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night, there's a game as well, isn't there? So, and there is obviously the Championship game.
So I've looked for an indication of when the draw takes place. Couldn't find anything last night. I guess it's going to be...
Not their website or anything like that?
No, I'm guessing it's where it'd be up to the TV companies, wouldn't it? Which sometimes they put at daft times, like 11 o'clock in the morning before games have even happened. That obviously won't be the case this week because it's midweek. I would have thought the draw will be either Wednesday night or Thursday night rather than next Monday Forest play Huddersfield. I don't think they're going to wait for that. So, yep, Suj, by all means, have a look and see if you can find the draw time. I certainly couldn't find anything last night. But obviously the results will impact game week 30, but the draw will have an impact in terms of we can then get a real closer idea of what we think the outlook may be for sort of game week 33 and beyond. That's particularly important.
Right, should we get into some of these games?
Yeah.
Let's start with Southampton 2, Norwich 0.
I was getting a bit worried for Southampton towards the end of the game because they should have been well out of sight. They were so comfortable. So comfortable. They're on a great run. Was it 1 defeat in 10 or so? Includes drawing at Old Trafford, beating yourselves, beating my team. Really good run. I think the only defeat in that sort of 10 was away to the Wolves, the game with obviously that great James Ward-Prowse free kick. Then now I've got serious ambitions to finish in the top half. They look a more consistent animal at the moment than a Leicester, a Brighton or an Aston Villa. The team's really settled. I think he's kind of in a nice place with that at the moment in terms of Elianusi and Armstrong's coming back and made a real difference, which I think is good news for those who obviously want to invest in Southampton for the double game week. I think Livramento starting doesn't give us the answer of what's going to happen in the next week or so, but obviously he's an interesting option. Cole Walker-Peters was absolutely brilliant at left back, really is developing into a good player now. Peral obviously can come back in. If you need the nailedness, a little bit like we discussed last week, Salisu and Bednarek's definitely the back two as it stands. Obviously Liancal still out long term. JWP's a really interesting asset for the double. You know you're getting 180 minutes if he's fit, right?
Yeah.
And because of the set pieces, one return and he'll get you a decent return. And then it's the front two are obviously going to be popular this week because I think Weghorst owners, once you get beyond tomorrow night, and especially if he blanks, are possibly going to bomb him straight out.
Do you think a lot of people will bomb him straight out?
Yeah. Yeah, I do, yeah, because I think you've got in the likes of, depending on what you have in the bank, Raul Jimenez, Breuer, Adams, if Saint Maximin is available, which we're expecting him to be for Newcastle's double-double, there are options in and around that value which I think dictates that people are going to move it straight on, and I haven't decided that I won't. In my setup plan at the moment, I'm just benching him as it stands, and it might be effective of by the time you get to the weekend, it might be dependent on your strategy, right? So you might look at Burnley v Southampton as on in game week 30 if you beat Southampton in the cup, and then you go, well, I've got Weghorst for 29 Brentford, that's okay. 30 against Southampton, that's okay. I'll keep him possibly. So again, even still now we know what we think is going to happen with Chelsea to repeat several times over. I'd be waiting till at least the end of the Wednesday night games before making any transfers. Even then, if say you've got Dennis King, who knows? Maybe Everton could lose to Bournemouth on Thursday. I don't think so. Yeah. But then that would put Watford Everton on in game week 30. So you really should really should wait till the end of Thursday. But I think at least wait till the end of Wednesday night before you're confirming transfers for this week. Saints really interesting though. It's a decent double.
They
as well,
are,
isn't it?
but also, I mean, I already own Breuer. Yeah. So the other two in my list of people that I would go to would be Livramento. But I've got a back five, James, at the moment of Trent, Cancelo, Rudiger. They're going nowhere. Kilman also got a double. So I'm not doing that sideways move, Kilman to Livramento. And then Ben Johnson for me right now is the best 3.9 defender in the game. I'm not going to move him on. So there's no room for Livramento. You then mentioned the second, JWP, correct. But I'm prioritising a Chelsea midfielder if they've got a double over JWP and Mason Mount. So there's no room for me to go to Southampton for a second or third player right now unless I was really taking hits. And I'm not that desperate to go to Southampton. Breuer will do the job. Norwich.
What's interesting, though, is that I think that the majority of their players are interesting if you were to look at them. I think most wouldn't go for Forster at the moment, 4.4, because you could probably have the Brav crew's got double, depending on your strategy at the same price. Livramento is back up to, 4.4. You've got Bednarek, same price. Lissu's 4.5. Walker Peters more, 4.8. Pereira at the moment you probably are not gambling for. Romeo is not an FPL option, but he's 4.5 million. Perhaps if you were wildcarding, maybe. I'd still prefer to go for the likes of Ramsey and a little bit more at the moment. Elianusi 5.4, Stuart Armstrong 5.8. They're interesting, mate. Genuinely really interesting.
For what though? The double?
Yeah. And then beyond.
I think there's other priorities. I mean, they've got good fixtures beyond.
Yes.
No doubt about it for a few weeks. But I just think that with the double, like I'd rather go Joe Willock.
Who have they got in 29?
Watford at home, Watford at home, then Burnley away, and then Leeds away.
It's decent, isn't it?
It's a very solid run. But again, I'd rather go double.
But then that's the point. I might land.
Newcastle.
At the moment, my intention is to free hit in game week 30. But it might be that I land in such a way by sort of Friday that I look at it and go, I'm better off buying Ward-Prowse here than Mason Mount.
If he's got a game in day.
Might be what I decide, yeah. Possibly. They're both double this week. Good fixture 29. At least I know with JWP he's definitely going to play as well. And then possibly covers me game week 30. I might decide to take that route. I think I'd pay the extra for him over Armstrong or Elianusi at the moment. Would just because of that. Yeah, absolute kind of guaranteed nailedness with him. The only way he doesn't play is if he's not fit. I think Adams and Breuer are really good options as well, obviously. Would you pay extra for Adams at the moment?
No,
I'm in agreement.
No.
I just think Breuer offers just really good value.
And like we said, he's due, isn't he?
Little bit of doubt in terms of the double. Will they play twice? But also it's worth remembering that there's a nice... For everybody who plays in 28, you've got a kind of real gap in the fixtures because all the second fixtures are on the Thursday. So there's different ways of looking at it. One, you can look at it and go, okay, it's 5 days gap between the fixtures. They might change. But in, say, Southampton's case, I feel like it's more likely that a Breuer or Adams would be left out for Watford at home in 29 rather than the second game against Newcastle in 28. Villa away and Newcastle at home is a decent double. Where I feel like it could go either way for Southampton. Could be 6 points, could be none. But at the moment, they're beginning to look a good side again. They always have spells like this.
Leeds 0, Spurs 4. We obviously watched this together.
Are you not buying Brandon Williams as the best 3.9 million defender in the game, no?
No. Leeds 0, Spurs 4. Very comfortable win for Spurs. And a good performance all round as well. But Leeds do need to look in the mirror a little bit and stop being so naive.
I think they've had a big look in the mirror, haven't they? The manager's gone,
yeah,
right?
Exactly that. It just, you look at it and you're like, it's painful to watch them do some of the things they do and leave themselves so exposed sometimes. And you're like, credit to Spurs for taking advantage. Some of the through balls and running behind from Kulusevski and Son, and Kane had a great game picking the ball up, turning and threading balls through. But it was it felt too easy sometimes. That's the problem here. Say his name. Go on, say it. Doherty. Go on.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the ginger from Sweden.
No. No one
He's
cares
our
about
number
me.
21 is Kulusevski.
Talk about my Doherty. Go on.
Obviously, we was all watching the game together, and I didn't even realise it was Doherty till it hit the back of the net because I couldn't believe he'd made up the ground and got there. It was his best game for Tottenham. It's probably 6.5 out of 10 or something. But great, look, he's king of the game week at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, it's unlikely to get topped.
We was looking, he's got 27 points.
28, I think, now in total for the season.
27, I think.
Oh, okay. 18
season,
came
18 at the weekend.
Yeah.
Goal and assist.
29 points. Don't sell him short,
29.
mate. Don't sell him short.
He's got 12 points in the rest of the season. Listen, if you ask me if Matt Doherty is an FPL option, prepare to get yourself blocked. I'm being serious. Don't even consider it for a moment. I'd spoke previously about the wing-back situation, unlikely to play all 3 games, Man City and then Burnley Leeds. Ironically, the one who did was Sessegnon. And quite where that leaves us at the moment with Sergio Reguilon, I'm not sure. Because, do you know what? It was probably Ryan Sessegnon's best game for Tottenham as well in terms of, that link for the first goal with the 2 wing-backs combining and being the 2 highest on the pitch. That's kind of an Antonio Conte structured setup of getting them so high. And again, the work they have to do go up and down. What we don't know, of course, is how Reguilon's responded to COVID. We know that he's had it. Is that why he hasn't started? Because I was shocked that he wasn't starting at Leeds, but I don't think it tells us anything for what's next. And what's next for Tottenham is Everton at home. So most people are looking at and obviously want to play there.
And a double straight after.
And a double straight afterwards. So most obviously want to keep/play their Tottenham assets. Like if you've got a Reguilon, I just think it's painful. There'll be others with Emerson as well. It's going to slap you at some point where it's awful. There's obviously information can be gained tomorrow night. Like if Reguilon plays at Middlesbrough, then at least you know he's fit and he's available and stuff. I imagine surely he will start at Middlesbrough in the Cup tomorrow night. But these wing-backs are going to pain you. They're going to keep paining you. That first 3 is definitely first choice now. Romero, Davis and Dyer. That won't change bar injury. Sanchez is definitely the understudy to that back 3. And up front, there's 3 very interesting players, isn't there?
Yeah, Sonny I already own. And I'd rather, if you ask me right now, Kulusevski at 6 million is way more interesting than Kane at 12.2. Having said that, because all the other forwards are so cheap, it's easy to go and get Kane at 12.2 if you've got the money. But we talked prior to this game, you said maybe not yet, but I think at 6 million, I would like to look at getting Kulusevski. This week I'm going to try not to take a hit. I'll just maybe make the one move to get Mount in. But then the week after, I'm looking at both Robertson and Kulusevski as my 2 transfers. Andy Robertson, and yeah, I think it's more than doable for me to move on. At that point, the best 3.9 in Ben Johnson, but to go to Andy Robertson is fine. And getting Kulusevski in, I think they're all interesting.
I think Kulusevski is extremely interesting. I didn't think he'd start at Leeds, and I still maintain that opinion because I think Tottenham wanted to use the direct running of Lucas Moura, who got injured in training on Friday, so we will never know. But what is interesting with Kulusevski, he's played all of these 3 games already. His fitness looks great. He's a powerful player. The Tottenham Twitter that was getting on his back after his debut and stuff, God, Jesus, some people just don't understand football, honestly. He has brought a little bit of creativity to this team. He's calm on the ball. He links the play well. I think he gives good balance, which is good news for whoever's going to play right wing back in terms of he's the sort of player you can feed it into his feet. He's quite comfortable back to goal. And then when he gets in and around the box, he feels like a player. When he comes in on that left foot, I think,
shoot.
Yeah. Because I feel like you've got the ability there and stuff. The Llorente, I quite like Diego Llorente at Leeds, but what he's doing there, where it's like he runs through the ball on Kulusevski's goal, really bizarre, and not the only bad Leeds moment defensively during the game. I agree with you. I think Kulusevski's seriously interesting. He's definitely ahead of Lucas Moura in the pecking order. I think there is an element to certain fixtures where I still think there is good use for Lucas Moura. But yeah, Kula is really, or Decky as the Tottenham guys are calling him, Apparently that was his nickname when he was a kid or something. So you might hear me say Decky a few times. I rate him, and I think he's very, very interesting. I think most people won't buy him next week, but like you, the 29 double, and especially if Spurs do end up playing in 30, which is still a possibility, and then Newcastle in 31, yeah, he's super value. He's super value. I thought as soon as I saw the price that it was short of where I expected it to be, like $1 million less than Coutinho, for example. It's short. So I think, one to really, really keep an eye on. I unbelievably, it's not inconceivable that you could have Kane's son and Kulusevski, and I think it's okay.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on Raphinha and Leeds now with new manager coming in? Jesse, what's his face?
Jesse March looks like he's probably going to be announced today, and I need to do a bit of research into him in terms of what might change.
If you own a Raphinha, you're holding, and if you don't go there.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think you're probably not buying at this minute in time. That said, I mean the double is not unattractive, Suj, at all. Leicester away and Villa at home. Yeah, I'm quite happy that Raphinha's sitting there. And I think that as well, because I don't know, what do you do, Suj, if you're looking to buy at that value this week in the midfield area? Where are you? Ward-Prowse, Kulusevski, Raphinha, Mason Mount,
Joe
Willock, Ryan Fraser, we'll talk about in a sec as well. Like, I don't think it's Raphinha at this minute, is it?
Nah, it's definitely not for me. He's way down on the list. I'm looking at Mount, Kulusevski, Willock, all those guys ahead of Raphinha.
But I'm also really pleased that he's sitting in my team.
Okay, because not many other people will go there, and if he goes off, you'll do all right.
If Norwich-Chelsea stays in game week 30, I won't rule out captaining him.
Brentford 0, Newcastle 2.
We're not talking about Bielsa now because we might talk about it a lot tomorrow, if you're wondering. We'll talk about People's Poll in a bit.
Yeah. Newcastle up to 14th in the table. That's a big jump up. 4 wins out of 5. A massive statement win away, and they've got games in hand.
Unbeaten in 7 or 8 in the league.
Doing very well, Newcastle. And Joe Linton on the score sheet. I mean, people up in Geordie land must be wondering what's happened. They're waking up in a twilight zone where they're the richest club in the world. They're 14th in the league.
Nosebleed.
And Joe Linton is scoring goals. Like, what is happening here? But and a clean sheet to boot as well. So, I mean, very interesting. Newcastle... I feel like I should be going there for the double-double, but I don't know if I will. But I feel like I should be going there. Like, if you had the choice of Willock for a double-double or a Mason Mount, value aside, what would you do? Or a Kulusevski, Everton at home and then a double, but your double's not great, United and Brighton.
I'd go Ryan Fraser.
Over? Because?
I watched most of this game yesterday, and I know, admittedly, obviously Brentford had 10 men for a lot of it. But I've been feeling for a few games with Ryan Fraser that the fitness is finally back. I think like that's probably been missing for his whole spell at Newcastle. And the amount of chances he was creating this game, had a really high XA at the weekend. Willock obviously ended with a high XG because of the chance he had, which he took extremely well. And I think those two are really interesting. I would punt Ryan Fraser if I was buying one of the two at the moment. I think it's really interesting. What's his ownership, Suj?
He's very cheap as well. At 5.3 million, you're talking proper budget. It doesn't even start with a 1, mate. 0.4%.
Yeah. And what's Willock's?
Willock's going to be a little bit higher, I'd assume. 1.5%.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, I would punt Ryan Fraser. But I think if you've got a preference for Willock, it's absolutely fine, by the way. I mean, prices are very similar as well, aren't they, Suj?
5.7 and 5.3. Willock's more expensive.
It might be one again where come the weekend, say Palace lose to Stoke tomorrow night, and they've got the fixture on in 30 as well. Then you've got double fixture. I mean, there's so many things I think, like my plan, as I said, is still to free hit in 30, and that will be the case for many. But you might feel very differently about it following these cup results, honestly. And I think that might be a tipping point for me if they have the 30 fixture at home to Palace as well. And look at it, yeah. I think Ryan Fraser's the one for me, actually, Suj, rather than Willock. St. Maximin's the one who, to kind of go back, people might be looking to move off Weghorst. You want to see the fitness of him. I feel like he's despite the double-double, do you have any faith that he would play 4 games?
I wouldn't buy him. That's how little faith I have. I couldn't buy him.
But he's so much fun. Size, you shouldn't buy players necessarily for fun, but Size right, and he said it again on COTC last week.
You'll enjoy having him in your team.
You will enjoy having him in your team, and he's a sort of player you can...
He's also a forward, which we were struggling in that forward slot.
Well, exactly.
So
I mean, where do you...
Not for me.
If you are been in Weghorst after this week, Jimenez, Adams, Breuer, St. Maximin... I mean, if you're not using the chips, and then say suddenly they do have the fixture with Palace in 30, it's going to push people to gamble St. Maximin, I think.
Yeah. Brentford, in that same clash of the correspondents, Tom Med, who is a Brentford correspondent, does obviously keep Brentford players in his team because of love of his club, which is perfectly acceptable. But the Mbumo to Josh Da Silva sideways move that he mooted doesn't look so good now.
No, it doesn't, especially when you consider he's now suspended till April.
Ouch.
It's not as bad as it sounds, but obviously because of the nature of the challenge, it's a 3-game suspension. And because obviously the international break, he's just come back. He can't play till April, over a month away. It's still February at the moment. And it's a massive period, these upcoming 3 games for Brentford, who they need to do something in these next 3, or I think they're looking over their shoulder, very much so. So what they got this week, Norwich away, then it's Burnley at home, I think. And then obviously we know that they'll play at Leicester in game week 30. If they're in a position where you're looking back, 1 point in the last 7 or so, that becomes 1 point in the next 10 or so, they will find themselves without games in hand and probably in the bottom 3 and with a difficult run in. And then we will all be sitting there in a couple of weeks saying, I think Brentford are going to go down. Now, there's no major problem with the fact they lost at the weekend because they've played nearly the whole game with 10 men, so it's completely understandable. And it's also understandable that they obviously switched to a back 4 following the red card. I wonder if they might permanently switch this to a back 4 over the next couple of games. And Tony obviously came back as a substitute, and go with Visser and Mbumo either side of Tony, particularly for these next couple of games, give them kind of an extra body up front, give them a better chance of winning the game. I wonder if they might do that. They've basically played a back 3 since basically this time last year. They kind of changed in the last sort of 8-9 games in the Championship. I wonder if they might go back 4 in the next few and go for it.
Let's talk about Brighton 0, Villa 2. We predicted draws in this and didn't really see what was coming. Brighton have lost 3 on the bounce. Villa back to winning ways. Obviously, I haven't paid much attention to this game or what happened at all, so you tell me. But Brighton are going to be a bit miffed.
For some reason,
I want to sell Trossard.
And regular listeners to us, yeah, me too, unfortunately. Even though they've got the dub win 29, I think it's probably... Yeah, unfortunately. I did say I'd stick it out till 28, but I mean, either way, I don't intend to start him this week, either way. And obviously now...
And it's Newcastle as well.
Yeah, now...
Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not even a difficult game.
To be honest, right now, you'd fancy Newcastle to win, wouldn't you?
100%.
For whatever reason, and I don't know why this happens, and regular podcast listeners of us will know, really like Brighton. I got a lot of time for them, the manager, everything. But for some reason, every season they have a period like this where they win like 1 in 11, 12, and you can't quite put your finger on why. They've only lost, I think...
That's 7 games all season.
I think they've only lost once away from home.
Okay.
I think, which is crazy, and saying about obviously fancying Newcastle this season. I'm probably sure you can probably check that and see if that's right, Suj. But I think they've only lost 1 away game all season. But looking at their home results, they haven't won at home since they beat Brentford, obviously in December. And that run goes back quite a bit further, where actually their previous win at home was in game week 5. Why? I don't have the answer, because most weeks we enjoy watching them play and stuff. But at the moment, they're having a moment, shall we say. I know Sam FPL Seagull tweeted after the game that Webster is now their most important player. He's classing him as more important than Lewis Dunk in terms of the way they want to play. And I think that's a little bit about the wide centre-backs bringing the ball out from the back. And I don't know. They've just dipped for whatever reason at the moment. And now even despite the double 29 is tough anyway, right? It's
Do you think there's anything in this
It's
time of
Liverpool and
season?
Tottenham.
This time of season is where they're in no man's land. They're not getting Europe, but they're obviously not going down. They're just stuck there in the middle of the table.
But it's only a few weeks ago they won really well at Watford. I know it's won at Watford, but there was a beginning to be a little bit of a feeling going into that fixture they had at Old Trafford of could Brighton kind of push to do what Southampton looked like they might do and suddenly go, hey, do you know what? Yeah, we're going to push that top 8 or so. And you are right, it's gone. They're in no danger of getting relegated. How many points are they on, Suj?
33.
I mean, they might already have enough.
Probably.
In terms of staying
I
up
don't
and
think
going
that's
down.
enough. But
it's probably not, but they're not going to lose the next 12 games, right? So, no, they're not in any danger of going down. They're also not in any danger, I think, of pushing for a European space. So, yeah, we probably are beginning to get to that period of the season where we say it, and we are they on the beach? I think Brighton are still very capable on any game of giving any team trouble, but there must be something within the mentality of that club that for some reason it seems to have a spell like this every year where suddenly you've gone, shit, they've lost 3 games in a row, they haven't scored and they don't look like they're going to anytime soon. I don't know why. I cannot put my finger on what the reason is because I enjoy watching them all the time. This was a better performance than the performance they gave against Burnley, but wasn't right. And actually, I know Sam's obviously saying Webster was out, but that's it, basically, in terms of what was unavailable for them.
Villa have got a game in 30. Yeah, I can't bring myself to go there because obviously Southampton this week's a difficult game.
It's double.
Arsenal, well, yeah.
Southampton and Leeds.
Yeah, I can't.
We don't know what we're going to get now from Leeds, do we?
Yeah, I can't. I just think that I'd rather go look at Newcastle with their double and double, and look at Chelsea with their double. And yeah, Villa. I think it was a few weeks ago was the time. Now I'm not really looking at them. If I free hit in 30 against Arsenal, I might have a couple, but I'm not looking to buy any Villa now.
I think, despite goal at the weekend, I think we're talking about moving off Weghorst. I think Watkins and Ings are probably off table. Excuse me, for people at the moment. Despite the fact they obviously both started at the weekend, I'm not sure if that's going to stick or not. I still think Watkins has the general favouritism over Danny Ings, despite missing the previous game they had when they lost at home to Watford. So it would be Watkins over Ings if you want to go that way. And I think if you're sitting there with Ollie Watkins, and a number of people will be, that's fine. I think you keep that and stick to it. But I still think Jacob Ramsey is the most interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, at that price.
I feel like because now the Chelsea double is added, that or is likely to, let's say, the priorities from maybe considering Villa, Newcastle and stuff like that might have moved a little bit where you think, oh crap, I probably really do need Chelsea because they have good fixtures afterwards as well, like Newcastle 29, Brentford 31. You probably do think, yeah, shit, I do need the Chelsea assets potentially. I think like if you've got Dean, that's great. If you've got Coutinho, I think you crack on. It's fine. I think the one to invest in at the moment might be, and the thing is with Ramsey is he'll facilitate, right? So maybe if you don't have a budget defender and you can't afford to get to Rudiger, or if you want to take the chance on Reece James, obviously returns as a substitute yesterday, then adding someone like Jacob Ramsey might be what facilitates the financial as well. And he's by miles the best asset at that value in the game. He's kind of like the perfect 12th player right now. So I think there will be interest again in Jacob Ramsey this week. I think for the others, I mean, did you buy this week Coutinho on Mount?
Mount.
Did you buy, is more interesting, did you buy Dean or Chalobah?
Chalobah, I wouldn't be confident of the minutes.
He's underrated a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I guess the thing with him is a player he won't. I guess in a double, you're probably looking at one appearance maybe, and therefore in the immediate, you probably would still favour Luka Dean, wouldn't you?
Palace won, Burnley won. For the non-free hitters, this was about as good as it could get with no clean sheet for Burnley, no return for Weghorst. It's exactly how you want.
Captain has wanted Weghorst to score.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the free hitters more than the captain as a Weghorst.
And he did, but obviously Jay Rodriguez was offside on the original effort. It was obviously the correct decision. I note that Maxwell Cornet was an unused substitute, will he play against Leicester tomorrow night and upset someone? Because Asa Lennon, who I said on Friday's pod, played really well against Tottenham last Wednesday, and by all accounts he played really well on Saturday. Again, do they drop Dwight McNeil, or does Cornet come in for Rodriguez, or does he not come in at all? I suspect he'll probably be a sub again, won't they? I just think back to Dyche's comments on Cornet about him
coming back,
not having the fitness level, and we know that Sean Dyche generally does not like to change the team if they're doing okay. And their second half at Selhurst Park was much better than their first. And listen, for a side battling relegation, a draw at Selhurst Park is absolutely fine. Eric Peters went off injured with half hour to go, was replaced by Charlie Taylor. So, I mean, it's just a knock as far as we're aware, but I guess that leaves us not knowing who plays left back. I think at the moment, Connor Roberts owners probably looks like he's going to play again, and we know that they won't rotate too much. And they'll score tomorrow night, won't they? They're weather dependent. Leicester, honestly, if the weather's terrible there again, and I don't know what the forecast is, there is no way Leicester will survive it. No way they will survive it, certainly in terms of set pieces and stuff. So whoever you're sitting there with your 2 pointers on your Burnley players at the moment, I think
patience.
It was always possibly a little bit more about tomorrow night. The game week is not over. So, look, if Tarkowski and me knock up 15 pointers, or if Pope saves a penalty or stuff, then those who have free-hitted Suj are going to batter us, right? So, is that you can sit in now and go, it's not been too bad. By the end of tomorrow, which is the most important game probably in the game week, let's see where we stand from that perspective. In terms of looking ahead, it's more, what do you do with these Burnley guys? Do you bin them?
I'm keeping him not for the Chelsea, not for this particular week, but the week after, and then I'll assess what it's like for
I think
after 30.
For most people, and there will be a number of people wildcarding this week, there'll be a number of people free hitting, but for those who are not using the chips and just making transfers this week, I think your most common play is to bench your Burnley players, but then, I don't know, like Tarkowski, do you move it straight onto the likes of Lucadine, for example, Wolves defensive players? There's a number of different ways of looking at. What do you do as a Nick Pope owner? I bet Nick Pope owners were probably thinking we're going to go to Ramsdale. Would you consider
Ramsdale?
Would you consider Mendy?
No, it's too expensive. Jose Sarr or Ramsdale are still the two best for me.
It probably depends if you've got Foster as well. If you've got Foster, I think you play Foster in the double, don't you?
I'm playing Foster over De Gea.
I will be doing the same, yeah.
And it's a nice segue into Foster outscoring De Gea by a whole 4 points this week with a 0-0 draw. Man United, Watford. We all played De Gea though, so. You know.
How many times did you want to tweet out, I should have played Foster?
None.
Which is obviously the incorrect decision, because quite how Ben Foster has managed to get a 10-pointer, I don't know. Well, I do know, because it's the amount of saves and stuff he made in the game in a 0-0 draw. It's understandable.
We only made 3.
But this wasn't a terrible Manchester United performance. They should have won. They've missed so many chances in this encounter. They should have won. We've had a number of games over the last few years where United have let people down and been poor. Actually, they were all right at the weekend, what I've seen of it. And should have won. I think on a different day, they win 2-3-0 and no one says anything. Now,
if you punted defensively on Maguire or Shaw.
Maguire was left out. Shaw was left out.
Yeah.
There were loads of changes to United team. Anthony Elanga played, was really lively. Sancho, we were talking up a lot, weren't we? Suj didn't start. Neither did Marcus Rashford. This is the end of United's run. Like, it's over. The game week 15 to game week 27 period we looked at as the best extended run for any team all season. We could look at that as early as game week 1. The fact that they don't have a larger gap over the likes of Arsenal, I think
2 points. If you'd offered me that 27 games in, 2 points behind United with a better goal difference.
Well, I think it was if you go back to game week 15 and you said who will be top going into top 4 and going into game week 28, I said, well, it's definitely going to be Man United because them fixtures. They've had a lot of draws in there. So, look, it's more difficult run coming up. It's City away, then it's Tottenham at home. Then, presumably, we have to presume at the moment that the Liverpool fixture in game week 30 will be rearranged. I think they've got Leicester at home in 31. So it might not be as bad, and Everton 32, I think. It may not be as bad coming up as it looks on paper, but I think you're now looking at Exodus point. Manchester City away gives you really good. I think if you're on Fernandes, you looking at Sonny?
Yeah.
Or are you looking at kind of the chain move where perhaps you'd go something like Fernandes to Mount, Ward-Prowse, leave the money, and then move one of them onto Son the following week for his double? Do you look at it that way? Ronaldo definitely goes, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Like,
well,
you've still got
why is he still there? Is my question with Cristiano Ronaldo. He should have gone a long time ago.
Dalot I've got, and the plan always was to move Dalot to Rudiger this week, and that's still exactly the case. I think De Gea is probably benched this week, and then probably Ramsdale for me next week is probably where I'm going to be at with that. I think I'm not taking a hit for Ramsdale this week when I'm obviously not going to start him. So, but I think they go, don't they? There's difficult to make a case now for any United assets. Fernandes is still Bruno Fernandes, right? If you want to keep him, great. But I just think, like with Sonny's double and stuff coming up, it feels like an easy move. Even if you don't be afraid to leave 4 or 5 million in the bank this week and then go Sonny the next week if you want to play the game with the doublers. I think if you're on wildcard now, you would not have a Manchester United player. Fair.
Watford players are stinking out my team for ages, but they've got the double this week and they're going to keep stinking it out. And Foster and Dennis are playing this week, but then that's finally, yes, adios. See you later. Well, Foster won't leave because he's going to be backup keeper anyway. So, but Dennis, I can go somewhere.
So instead of 2 shit Watford forwards stinking out my team, I now got a shit forward from Southampton, a shit forward from Burnley.
Yeah.
I mean, what am I doing in this game? Honestly, the worst thing that happened to me this season was Adam Eder getting injured. Maybe Gelhardt will actually step up and start playing and look like the kind of the cheap asset we can go to who might be available from the bench. I don't regret taking the -4 for Breuer because it was kind of a 3-week decision, and I think Southampton's double's far better than Watford's, and then Southampton actually play Watford in 29 as well. So I think Breuer will make the points up for me over the next couple of weeks, and obviously, as said, it might be the game week 30 fixture as well. You are not buying Watford players this week.
No.
I don't think. The only one I could make a case to add this week would be Foster. It's obviously by far the best available, cheapest goalkeeper in the game. Perfect substitute. I think absolutely reasonable to play him this week against Arsenal Wolves because we've just seen that if they keep a clean sheet in a fixture like that, the haul is there, isn't it? And you can't help the randomness that exists with goalkeeper picks. So I think Foster absolutely fine. I would not be advising anyone to go back and buy Dennis or King this week. Although, interestingly, Dennis did go back through the middle at the weekend, and Josh King played a wider role.
Everton 0, Man City 1. This was a drunken watch for us.
We were well pissed by this point.
Watching it was, hang on, Everton are right here. They put in a real good performance.
Or were we just really,
energy.
really drunk?
Nah, because all the other people we spoke to in the pub thought the same. And shout out to Frank Lampard. Give him credit for calling out Chris Kavanagh for bottling it with VAR.
Listen, to be honest, exactly what he said. Nobody doesn't think that's a penalty.
And very quickly as well. Don't need 6 replays for it.
I don't know if by law it's the right decision, but it can't be. It can't be. It just looks like a handball all day long, unfortunately. But I think
his arm comes out.
But by law, if it's hit that bit of sleeve, I know it's terrible because it's handball. We all know it is. I don't think anybody doesn't want that to be a penalty, and it should have been a penalty. But I think that might be the logic in his decision not to give it, and I'm not defending it, but that might be the logic of gone, if it's hit the part of the sleeve. As far as I'm concerned, if it's, a quarter sleeve and 3/4 arm, I mean, in any case, exactly what you said, he's outstretched his arm, he's got an advantage by what he's done. It's handball, isn't it? Or bicep ball, whatever you want to clear it. Either way, it should be a penalty.
Wednesday morning.
All in agreement of that.
When we record Sky,
yeah,
Everton could be in relegation.
Yes. To be honest, I think they will.
I
think they will be.
I'm very. It's kind of. I've seen it coming, but it's still surprising to me.
I think they'll get out of it because I think in the likes of Doucouré being back is really important to them. I think Donny van der Beek's doing absolutely fine. He had a couple of really good key defensive moments actually in the game, which certainly showed me that, particularly in a 3-man midfield, he can play in that area for Everton. We don't really know what's happening with Calvert-Lewin, but I do feel there are goals in this team. Anthony Gordon looks better every time we watch him, and I think the
alternative to your Jacob Ramsey
I
could be
think
Anthony Gordon.
There's a case to say both, isn't there? Particularly with Ramsey having a double this week. And if I think I was wildcarding now, I'd go Ramsey and Gordon, I think.
Okay.
And have one this week and one the next week. And then you've got Ramsey in 30 as cover and go on from there. And maybe you pick and choose if you want to play one or bench one. I think you're probably bullying yourself into a front three. But then that can allow you a midfield that's more like Salah, Son. You can go sort of Salah, Son and Kane and a powerful defence, I think, if that's the way you want to go. Perhaps get Jota back in as your third midfielder. What am I talking about, Suj?
Everton getting relegated. Are we buying any Everton or are we buying any City? I'm not buying any City.
I wouldn't go.
I'm not buying any Everton.
I wouldn't go near Everton other than Gordon, even with the double coming 29. Obviously, if they can show that sort of character in upcoming games, they'll do okay. They'll do okay. I imagine they'll line up like that against Tottenham, which was kind of more of a 4-5-1, and make the game difficult. And that's not going to make the game easy for.
But remember what happened. I mean, you raise your game for City like you guys did, and then it's back to reality in a game that isn't as high profile as the champions come into town. It's not as easy to raise your game week in, week out when it's someone else that you're playing that's not Man City, and that's the challenge for them.
And their away performances have been particularly bad. Like, if you're asking me, do I think Tottenham beat Everton on Monday? Yeah, I'm sure most of the listeners do as well. But Tottenham have had troubles with teams who kind of go 4 on a 5, for example, even under Antonio Conte. So, but from an FPL perspective, no. And City, I think, also fall into this line of potentially binnable. They've had this really great run of fixtures, and I don't feel anybody's massively benefited from these. What was the fixture? The Brentford, Tottenham, Everton. There was another very attractive one in there that's escaped me, Suj, from their most recent fixtures. But it's kind of Norwich, yeah.
4-0.
But it's been shared around, hasn't it? Obviously, if you had the Sterling hat-trick, great. De Bruyne had the return against Brentford, great. This weekend gone, it was Foden. This is my point with them. It's always someone different. Always someone different. And that's why I've generally overlooked. And I don't feel like I've massively missed out by not having them.
He picks up Cancelo's points all along the way.
Well, there is that. But I'm not going to rule out selling him.
Okay.
Because I look at it in a moment and go, Tierney, great option. Cody, great option. Double now. Fixtures to come on the other side as great cover. If I want Rudiger this week, and I obviously want a third Liverpool player to go into 29, if I go Rudiger now for Dalot, which is the obvious one, do I look at Cancelo to Robertson in 29? And I might do. I might do, because I might just decide, no, look, Chelsea got a good run of fixtures. I know there's going to be more to come on the other side in terms of doubles for Chelsea. City, depends obviously what they do in the Cup, but possibly aren't going to double till, say, 36 or so. And there's going to be more doubles, isn't there? Can I go without Cancelo? I've got no interest in any other Man City player right now other than Cancelo. Yeah. And I might even end up losing him in the next couple of weeks.
Let's wrap Everton City by just a shout out to obviously Zinchenko Mikalenko's hug and embrace before the game and what the guys did for that cause. And obviously nobody wants to see war, and it's nice to see football coming together to support Ukrainians and the Ukrainians that we have in the Premier League. And it extends into the only game that we had on Sunday being at West Ham. And it really felt the atmosphere was so nervy because there was so much riding on the game. There had been a lot of talk of how important it is to both teams to win that game and what it meant. And then the club clearly, with the signs that were up, all of them training, like warming up in Yarmolenko shirts, Rice holding it up before the game. It was a bigger deal than I thought they were going to make of it. Let me say, like I thought, okay, we're going to support Yarmolenko, of course, but it was really front and center. And so a very nervy atmosphere. But yeah, for all the Ukrainians and what have you, maybe we've got listeners there who've not ever.
I think
to me, but
Premier League footballers have become far more aware of the power that they can have in terms of they're getting seen around the world, right?
Massively.
So it does not surprise me. Have you seen our old friend from last summer, Yaremchuk, at Benfica?
No.
Oh, you got to see that video.
Okay.
When he gets brought on as sub, and the reception he gets and stuff is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
No.
That people have obviously got so behind the cause. I don't think there's anybody listening who disagrees with anything that's going on in terms of the way football is dealing with this at the moment. I forget FIFA and UEFA and those kind of things for a minute. I mean, in terms of the players and,
of course,
and stuff like that. And you're right, particularly the Mikolenko Zinchenko. You could see Zinchenko crying and stuff. He really appreciated it.
Yeah.
I told you, mate, 1-0 West Ham.
Yeah, thank you for calling it. I did want to message you and say well done on it. And ended up being, I suppose, you know what, for you guys off the back of Burnley, Leeds might have been the gate. Like, if Leeds putting in a poor performance as a way of playing yourself back into form, for me, this was like Wolves played into our hands to allow us to play ourselves back into some sort of form so well. Like, firstly, 5 changes, you're looking at it.
Too many, yeah.
I like Fabio Silva as a striker, but Hwang, Silva, Trincao, if that was your front three all season, you'd probably go down, mate, because they're never going to score enough goals to keep you up. They're just not, right?
Why didn't you say this to the boys' faces when you were drunk on Saturday?
Well, I didn't think Fabio Silva, Trincao, and Hwang were going to be the front three that we were going to come up against. If I'm honest with you, and Fabio Silva worked his socks off and he really put a shift in, but the others, the quality wasn't there. They weren't going to threaten us really, and the passive nature that Wolves play first halves allowed us to dictate play and play ourselves into the game and play ourselves back into form. That's what I felt like. We were allowed to play ourselves back into form and get some rhythm, and suddenly, all right, this is the West Ham of old that we've seen earlier in the season. And Wolves played into our hands fully. I
think bigger than the absence of the front three was the absence of the wing backs. Aït-Nouri and Semedo.
Hoover was offering nothing.
And Marcal's not the same, is he?
No.
So I think that was a bigger influence. For me, it was too many changes.
It was too many, sadly. I can understand why Large did it, but it was too many changes.
I can and I can't understand it because he's obviously gone with basically his best team at Arsenal and then changed 5 at West Ham. I don't know. I'd almost feel like you were better off doing that the other way round. And I know they very
but we also said that you'd rather beat Arsenal and lose to West Ham than lose to Arsenal and beat West Ham.
It depends what Wolves' goals are, I think, for the season. Arsenal are in the box seat for top 4. So if there was a realistic ambition to do that, then I suppose, yes, beating Arsenal would have been better. Do you rule them out of top 4 now, Wolves, on what you've seen?
The gap's getting bigger, definitely. But
I still think
defense. I think Joseph is still a great goalkeeper. Defensively, they were still very solid. We created chances, but it was hard work. Like, the players had to put a shift and a half in, the West Ham players yesterday, to get that result out. So defensively, they're not going to concede many goals, and it's still going to keep them in with the hunt. I think Jose Sarr for me is such an interesting goalkeeping option, but I can't see myself going there. Although if I needed a keeper to stay till the end of the season, I think he'd be the one that I'd want to go to. I can't see Wolves scoring enough goals. Right? Unfortunately, I just can't see them scoring enough goals. Although when Neto came on, like, if you gave me Neto, Podence, Jimenez as a front three, that's a European front three. They'll get you into Europe. And if you give me Trincao, Silva and Hwang, that's going to get you relegated. So the gap is too big between the best front three and the second best front three, in my opinion. Neto and Podence and Jimenez hitting some form, I still think they can get into Europe. But, it wasn't great. And, West Ham put in a good performance, and people moaning about Bowen blanking, but he had that one opportunity one-on-one where he should have done better. And he had a decent enough game. Antonio put a real shift in. He worked really hard. And he's playing himself into some sort of form. Lanzini was good. Fornals had a great game. Ben Johnson had a very good game coming in. And if you're looking for a 3.9, it's going to sit there and play, because Frederick's got an injury as well. So he's going to be playing.
We weren't aware of that. But
he's going to be playing now. So Johnson is fine. Bowen, I'd hold. I wouldn't necessarily sell him yet.
It depends, doesn't it? I think a lot are going to sell, and I think it's okay.
See, Gallagher, Trossard for me is easier to sell than Bowen.
It's kind of a little bit like Cancelo debate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, they're still great assets, but if you genuinely think you're going to go without, or in Jarrod Bowen's case, if you bought more recently and you haven't got the kind of million in the bank built up on him, then I think it's sell. My strategy at the moment, thinking, well, if I free hit him 30, fine, I won't use him in 28. I'll bench him against Liverpool. 29 is Villa at home. I'm happy to play him. And then your fixtures 31, 32 and 33 are all pretty good.
Yeah, 31 till the end of the season's not too bad. I mean, we've got Chelsea and City. City's a home game, Chelsea's away. And we've got a rearrangement with you.
33 might even be a double, depending on what happens with yourselves. So, I mean, for someone like me who's maybe not wildcarding until maybe 34 or 35, because I'm generally overall quite happy with what I've got at the moment, I'm looking at Bowen and going, okay, maybe I bench you this week and maybe you hang around neatly for me if I'm free hitting in game week 30 as well. So I think it's circumstantial with players like Bowen or Cancelo. And they're both, listen, if you were to pick an ideal FPL team at the moment, those two players would be in it, without a doubt. But it was definitely a case for potentially selling them for certain people at the moment. I get that completely.
Yeah.
For Wolves, it's 1 clean sheet in 7.
Yeah, surprising. I mean, they're still good defensively.
Yes, but it's 1 clean sheet in 7.
That's the problem when you don't score a lot of goals. I mean, we were laughing that they've only scored 24 all season, and Burnley have scored 22. You've got to keep clean sheets to win games, and if you start leaking 1s and 2s, it's a problem for Wolves.
Who's got the best double in 28?
Wolves still.
Or Chelsea? Is it Chelsea now?
Oh, well, yeah, sorry. We don't know that for fact. But assuming Chelsea have that double, I'd still fancy Chelsea over Wolves. Yeah.
Okay, so what are you looking to do with Wolves?
I've got Kilman only.
Yeah.
And I'm sticking with that for now.
I've got Cody only, and I think that's what it's going to be, yeah.
I would have bought Joseph Sarr potentially this week, but just playing Foster and Ramsdale the week after makes much more sense.
Yeah, I think those without Foster, I think Sarr in for De Gea this week, if you haven't got that cover or you've got a 3.9 keeper or whatever, is fairly straightforward. I think for those of us with Foster, you just go, fine, I'm going to go Foster. It is a brilliant double, Watford and Crystal Palace at home, obviously Palace first. And it's difficult to envisage that there will not be a clean sheet in that double. I think we would expect one, wouldn't we? Although it would be sod's law for Dennis to go to Molineux and get a hat-trick or so, wouldn't it? I think top 4 is going to be very difficult for them. It's certainly still in the hunt for European place. I think if I was buying in the midfield area, it would be Neto and Neto only. Podence wouldn't interest me. He's a nice price. He's 5.5, but doesn't overly appeal. He might be one for those who perhaps got like Michael Elise and don't have, excuse me, the money in the bank. Perhaps someone like Podence might fix your problem. Excuse me, Suj. Talk about Raul Jimenez while I clear my throat.
Fabio Silva played well. So I don't think that... I don't know if... He was dropped... The Wolves boys reckon he was dropped because of form, right? He wasn't dropped because of being rested. He was dropped because of form. And I think Fabio Silva did enough to say, look, give me the shirt, because he's got the hunger to want to really push. But Jimenez has been so consistent for so long. It's too much of a gamble for me. For a team that scores so few goals, it's too much of a gamble for me, Raul Jimenez. Too much money to have there.
I'm more interested in him now than I was prior to the game yesterday.
Because he got rested.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I think there's a bad result. He'll definitely come back in. I agree with you, the front three with Neto, Podence either side looks stronger. I know there's a lot of people out there considering Hwang. Thoughts?
Nah. If Neto... I mean, Neto's been coming off the bench. Now that he's got a bit of fitness, he'll take that spot.
Okay. Breuer or Hwang, if you were buying?
Breuer.
Ward-Prowse or Neto?
Ward-Prowse.
Okay, there you go.
For now, yeah. And that's the games wrapped, James. We're going to get into a few of the questions that we've had on Twitter, but having a quick scan, I mean, we've covered off so many about ginger Swedes and stuff like that, but we will answer a few. What do people have to look forward to when and when can we really start planning? Thursday morning, really, isn't it? Friday morning, really. Everton and
I
boring
think
Hood.
Listen, as quickly as tomorrow night, if you get, say, Stoke beat Crystal Palace and, you know, Newcastle and Palace is on in 30, or what if Peterborough beat Man City? Obviously, you won't know about Tottenham and West Ham in game week 30 till Wednesday night, i.e. if Tottenham and West Ham both lose. Although, obviously, if Tottenham win tomorrow night, you know, the fixture against West Ham would definitely be off in game week 30. Content this week, Suj. People's poll tomorrow. The vote is open on Twitter till 5 o'clock British time today. Options are Roman Abramovich. What has he done, Suj? What has he done? What is he doing? Why is he doing it? Be asking the question, if you want us to, is the Abramovich era over? And what's going on with him specifically in Chelsea? As we mentioned earlier, there's also the possibility to vote for the sacking of Marcelo Bielsa at Leeds, what might happen next, whether it was the right decision to sack him. And the third option you can vote for is how football is dealing with the war in Ukraine at the moment. What are FIFA doing? What are UEFA doing? What are footballers doing? What are the FA doing? We can look at that for you if you prefer. Wednesday, Sky Fantasy Football. Thursday's Clash of the Correspondents is Aston Villa versus Southampton, with Lee Jackson and Matt Samuel ahead of the double game week for both Villa and Southampton next week. I'll be streaming on YouTube Friday. Our Patreon podcast this week, Suj, or a Q&A today. We're going to do a quiz on Leeds tomorrow, actually. Wednesday will be Tottenham. Thursday, we'll do a bit of chip talk once we've got these cup games mainly, certainly the first 6 fixtures, out of the way. And then Friday, we'll do our Game Week 28 preview.
Okay.
Advanced tier content this week. We'll take a closer look once I get the time to have a look at what Jesse March may bring to Leeds United.
Okie dokie. A few questions that we had that generally we've covered off all the football stuff. There's a lot of should I buy Joe Willock and Newcastle defenders. If you had to go with one of these for the rest of your life, James, this is from Fantasy Football Nerd, would it be bacon or fried chicken?
Bacon.
I'd go fried chicken. I think bacon is... I like bacon, but it's overrated.
Yeah, but you can have bacon any time of day.
Yeah, fried chicken any
You
time
can't
of
go
day,
to like
with gravy.
Dixie at like 10 o'clock in the morning, mate. But it is still acceptable to make a bacon sandwich at 10 o'clock at night.
No, you can have fried chicken any time of day, especially with gravy. You can have fried chicken any time
No,
of day.
you cannot have fried chicken at like 8 o'clock in the morning, mate.
You
can't. No, you can't, mate.
You shouldn't, but you can.
No, you can't.
You can.
You can't. It's shut anyway.
Because fried chicken is one of those foods that no one makes themselves, do they? How many people do you know that cook their own fried chicken?
No one is having fried chicken for breakfast, mate. Let's be real.
Chicken and waffle, but then you get duck and waffle.
But you can have bacon. You can make a bacon sandwich at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's my point.
Timo says, if the Premier League offered you a job planning fixtures, would you take it?
Depends on the money, doesn't it?
And it fucking takes
I mean, to
5
be honest,
minutes, doesn't it? It's not that hard.
My service is there for free. I've told them this in million. Get me and Krellin and Ian Parrin and Lego Mane and Talon Nadeem. All you need to do is get the 5 of us in a room. We'll deal with it in 10 minutes the whole fucking season. Joke. And a few others if they want to join in. Yeah, it's...
Quite a few asking about Kepa. What were your thoughts on Kepa being brought on for the shootout and then doing what he did, skying it into the air?
I thought it was funny but I didn't have a problem with it.
No, of course.
Jamie Redknapp ranting like a madman afterwards about it being disgraceful and stuff. They've already done it a couple of times and it worked for them. So it was funny. The narrative of the way it played out, especially obviously after he refused to come off it in the final of the same competition against Man City a couple of years ago. It might be getting known, instead of the Carabao Cup, it would be known as the Kepa Cup final. The narrative behind it was funny.
Yeah. Dave, FPL Gills, at what age did you make the transition from Duplo to Lego? Duplo's like those big ass bricks, you know.
You haven't got a clue.
Well, I don't know either, but I know as soon as you can trust the child not to eat the Lego, they're fine with Lego. As soon as they realise that it's not food.
I'm sure we've got
cool.
some parents listening who are like, maybe their other half's pregnant or maybe they're pregnant themselves. And are thinking, one thing you always think as a parent, you hear stories about parents stepping on Lego and stuff, and you're like, that'll never be me. Let me tell you that it will be.
Yes, indeed.
And there is nothing on earth quite like standing on a piece of Lego and not being aware that it's about to happen.
Yeah, indeed. That kind of sort of wraps all the questions that we've had, and obviously we have a lot of football this week, so we're not going to be getting into our decision making yet. We will at the end of the week though, once we know what's happened with the FA Cup and whether or not we'll all be steaming into Chelsea or other
It's March the 1st tomorrow.
It is. So sign up today if you want to, and you'll refund it and you get it tomorrow. Otherwise,
Suj
sign up
trying
tomorrow.
to give me work to do.
Oh, if
you don't want to give me work to do, sign up
just
tomorrow.
Sign up tomorrow morning.
If you do, sign up today.
Yeah, and it's a rolling monthly, so if you don't enjoy it, we won't be offended. But we'd love to have you as part of the community. Look after yourselves, stay safe, and ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Play it your way. Cue music, please, man child.